I'm a teacher. It's a fill-in-a-blank question. Okay. Monkeys changing into humans. Yeah, to people. And then you might have seen the little pictures of the little thing that looks like Bambi, and it turns into a zebra-looking thing, and it turns into a horse. And then you see a thing of the little thing that looks like a spider monkey, and then it's like a chimp, and then it's like a gorilla, and then it's like a caveman with a spear, and then it's a human, Well, they've got that thing for birds, changing from what looks like a little fuzzy plucked chicken lizard that gradually changes into things that has feathers and perching feet, a bird skull and wings, and a wishbone and a sternum for the anchoring, a keel for the anchoring of the flight muscles and all that until it turns into modern birds. So they've got that little thing. We're going to focus on that. How many remember those PC and Mac commercials where there's a guy playing the PC and a guy playing the Mac, and the Mac guy is cool and the PC guy is dorky, somebody picked up on that and decided to do creation and evolution.
Oh, I am creation.
And I am the theory of evolution.
That's right. Watch out for the tail.
Oh. The tail.
I was just trying to break the ice.
Right.
I figured you'd adapt.
Yeah, and I figured you'd... No, okay, that's funny too.
Thank you.
Yes. Look, I realize it's difficult for some people to fully grasp me.
Well, that's just because you don't make any sense.
Well, it does take a certain... what's the word I'm looking for? Something...
Imagination?
No. It takes a lot of...
Deception?
No. What's the word? A lot...
Faith.
No, don't ever use that word.
Sorry.
Evidence. That's the word. It takes a lot of evidence to fully grasp who I am.
Evidence, yeah. Like the fossil record.
Exactly.
So you guys have finally found all the transitional forms?
No.
Oh. You found a few, right? I mean, after 150 years of searching?
No, not a one.
Oh. So there really is no evidence?
Right.
So it does take faith.
What do we say about that word? Sorry.
Yeah. Is it really wrong how funny I think that is? I don't know. Okay. Now, talking about missing links, as I told you we were going to do that and show you some things National Geographic did back in 1998. They pulled together all the fossils they could find to make one of those little charts, like the little monkey turned into people and little Bambi turned into horses. They had the little fuzzy plucked chicken lizard that turned into birds like we have today. So this is a little graphic here. Are dinosaurs equal to birds? And we were talking, some of us, yesterday when I was first meeting Michael and Terry and all about how they really are. There's a move in the evolutionist community to change the classification of birds so they don't get their own class anymore. That class Aves will be commuted and subsumed under class Reptilia, and it'll become order Aves. That birds will be officially called reptiles, but really under order Dinosauria, because birds, according to their theory, evolved from dinosaurs. I need to turn this on for it to work. Oh, I need to plug it in to make it work. My wife calls this a Mensa moment. I am in Mensa, 98th percentile IQ group, but God makes me do something stupid in front of a lot of people once a day so I don't become obnoxious and prideful. I'm hoping that was the only one for today. Okay, God created birds on day 5, Genesis 1:20-23. All land animals, including the dinosaurs, because they creeped on the earth, were created on day 6, including humans. Birds did not evolve from dinosaurs. This I know, for the Bible tells me so. The Bible tells us where birds came from, and it isn't like what the Smithsonian says. How many saw Jurassic Park? The handsome guy that looks like me in the movie, him, the tall one. He's an inch taller than me. But now he sells apartments. Change your apartment, change the world. He's also the gang master challenge guy on Ragnarok, if you've seen that. Well, anyway, this is a scene from the second Second Jurassic Park movie, remember where the little girl was on the beach when all those little dinosaurs come up and bite her? And she goes, "Why? Hello." And she actually says this line in the movie, "Are you some kind of little bird?" It doesn't look like a bird. It has no feathers, but it's making these little bird sounds because that's what the evolutionists want you to think, that dinosaurs eventually, they were so much like birds, they just changed into birds. Just like the magic of evolution did it. And he goes, "No, are you some kind of little monkey?" Now, Dwayne T. Gish, one of the granddaddies of the modern creation movement, I heard him one time say that flight should be a great test case about evolution. Because if you and I were to get up out of our seats and fly, it would take some very big changes. And so a big change with all the structures that would have to change for a dinosaur to be able to become a bird, those changes would be so big, surely there'd be a lot of missing links as evidence chronicling the change that would have to. And now flight does occur in 4 classes of living things today. In class Insecta, in class Reptilia under order Pterosauria, and in class Aves, which we're going to talk about today, and in class Mammalia under order Chiroptera, or the bats. But let's take a look. I told you they had found in the 90s, by that time they'd found a lot of fossils they thought were missing. You're getting it. And so they put them all together and made this little chart. 1998, July, National Geographic put out a special edition. Just every once in a while, a magazine will put out a special edition. Life, Newsweek, Time, Omni, Wired. They'll all of them, every once in a while, every year or two, they'll put up some special edition, just all feature article, a lot of articles about evolution, so true, so proved, everybody knows it. It's propaganda, and they're not doing it on purpose. It's the prince of the power of the air, the father of lies, and he's extremely good at tricking people. He's tricked you before? We could talk about that. Well, anyway, in 1998, this issue of National Geographic came out, and look what it says: Dinosaurs take wing, the origin of birds. So there's a little dino bird right there. And this is that chart I was talking about. Look, there's a little fuzzy plucked chicken lizard, the Cinerintha, the Dinosaurs. Then it turned into the famous Velociraptor, which has swiveling wrists, which could be the bones in birds' wings that help them steer while they fly. And then the Unenlagia, then the Cadipteryx, the Proto-Archaeopteryx. What's a prototype? Anybody? The first thing, yeah. Pro means before. So the proceeding program, whatever. The prototype, Proto-Archaeopteryx means, literally, the name means before Archaeopteryx. And there's the Archaeopteryx, which has wings, a perching feet, a bird-like skull. It has a keel for the anchoring of the flight muscles, and it has complete feathers. It was probably not a super great flyer, this particular bird, like a pheasant or a turkey, but it could fly, could get airborne. And then the Eolulivus, which then had a little thumb on it inside its bones on its wings to help it to fly stationary and hover. And then the Corvus, or the modern crow. Now, that looks pretty good. National Geographic artists, they make it look pretty good. What do we got? Well, let's check it out. The evolution of birds, according to National Geographic, from that plate on page 91 and 92 in 1998. It says right up here in the corner, just as humans are mammals, birds belong to the great clan of dinosaurs, in the view of most paleontologists. The idea that the defining traits of birds first arose in dinosaurs dates from the early expoundings of evolutionary theory. British biologist Thomas Henry Huxley, who you might have heard of, a great atheist evangelist in the 1890s, a champion of Charles Darwin, broached the notion in the mid-19th century. The idea was examined anew in the 1970s by Yale University paleontologist John Ostrom. They even named one of the dino bird missing links after Ostrom, who cited a host of similarities between Archaeopteryx and Theropods. Now, Archaeopteryx was that blue one that I said was a bird that could fly pretty good. Not great like an eagle, but could fly. Okay, and a theropod is a dinosaur with 2 legs, hind legs. Can you name, there were a lot of dinosaurs that didn't have 2 legs, a lot of them were 4-legged, and there were the giant swimming reptiles, the Mosasauria, and there were the giant flying reptiles, the Pterosauria. But amongst Dinosauria, there were the bird hip and the lizard hip ones. And name me a dinosaur that had 2 hind legs. T-Rex, yeah. The duck-billed dinosaur. There's a whole bunch of them that walked on 2 hind legs. So theropods, the 2 hind leg ones, were the ones that they think that the birds would have evolved from, theropod dinosaurs. This family tree at the left is not a chronological progression, but rather an illustration of how the traits of the modern wing evolved in different creatures in different locations at different times. The wing is a perfect example of, of how, now I'm just going to tell you that this is not unusual for the technology to go bad just when you're calling the devil a liar. But the Lord told me a long time ago, he will be able to hinder you, but he will not be able to stop you. Take that. Father of lies, the blood of Jesus. Okay, the wing is a perfect example of how nature incorporates attributes that came about for unrelated reasons into a new structure, explains paleo-ornithologist Luis Chiappi of the American Museum of Natural History. And this is a museum plaque next to a display. The Chinese fossil dino birds have shown beyond doubt, those are the ones that are in the picture that I showed you, that feathered dinosaurs are the ancestors of birds. But fossils only go so far in telling us how fast-running predators transformed into winged masters of the sky. Can living birds provide the final clues to how dinosaurs took flight? Well, in a little bit, we're going to have Brother Michael and his living bird will come up and we'll talk about it then. But the evolutionists think, oh yes, it just makes so much sense. But much like what you've already heard, the contradictions in thinking, the internal contradictions, the little fairy tale belief and faith it takes to swallow this. But it does look pretty good when you draw it just right. Well, what does the Bible tell us about all of this sort of stuff versus what the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History and National Geographic are going to tell us? Well, according to the Bible in Genesis, the very first chapter on day 5, it tells us, that's my Bible there. Yeah, I just took a little scan of it. But if you look in Genesis 1, verse 20, on day 5, all the things that swim in the sea and all the birds that fly in the air, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the 5th day. That's our account of where birds came from versus the National Geographic account of where birds came from. So this chart, compelling as it is, with the little pictures of everything showing the change, that's pretty strong stuff. You go to the dentist office and pick up a National Geographic or a doctor's office, and you wait in the waiting room, and you look at anyone that flips that open and goes, another triumph of Darwin's theory, modern science continues to teach us and marches on. Well, next year, in 1999, a new fossil was discovered in China, the Archaeopteryx liaojiensis, which means it comes from the Liao province. Genesis, they even use our word. Genesis means comes from. So it came from the Liao province. Archaeopteryx. This issue of National Geographic, and this was the artist's conception of this feathered dinosaur. Now, they get this from what you have up here, which looks like somebody's, Mick dinner or Kentucky Fried Dinner stomped in the mud, but they have to reconstruct these things from all the pressure, and it's a real fossil, when it gets broken up, and they have to try to reassemble it in their minds, and then they just drew this, okay? and that was feathered dinosaurs, it says. In the article, it says feathers for T-Rex. New bird-like fossils are missing what? Missing links in dinosaur evolution turn into bird. Look at a baby T-Rex there. It's all fuzzy, like a baby chicken, fuzzy down, baby ducky, and they've never found this on a T-Rex, but they drew it anyway because it goes with the theory. Look at what it says about it. It's a missing link between terrestrial dinosaurs and birds that could actually fly. 1999, the Archaeopteryx leonensis was the missing link that proved once and for all, you stupid creationists, and this was thrown in our face. You must really finally give up now. We have the beautiful chart from 1998, and now we've got this. And Stephen Serkis, notice the picture modeled by Stephen Serkis. The quote is by Stephen Serkis, and his wife and him were the ones that really pushed this fossil as the missing link. We can now say birds are theropods. Well, what's a theropod? It's a two-legged dinosaur, okay, walks on the hind legs like a bird does. We can say that birds are theropods just as confidently as we can say humans are mammals. And we classify as mammals because, we have hair instead of feathers or scales, nurse the young with mother's milk and all of that. And we're warm-blooded. By the way, birds are warm-blooded. That's why they want so much to believe that dinosaurs were warm-blooded too. And they're not totally sure. There's some evidence, but that does not mean that dinosaurs evolved into birds. Now they drew another chart, and at the front, there's the Archaeopteryx, the new, proudly leading the parade. This is a scene from one of the Jurassic Park movies here, The Lost World. It says, obsolete model, baby T-Rex in 1997's Lost World Jurassic Park probably would have feathers if the movie were made today, because it would have to be updated with the new scientific discoveries. Discoveries like never finding feathers on T-Rexes, but we should put it in the movie anyway. What's a thinking Christian to do? What do we tell our kids in Sunday school, in youth group, at Christian schools and homeschooling? When this stuff comes up, National Geographic, those TV specials, hey, Calypso, the places you've been to, a John Denver song about Jacques Cousteau, and, it's all that National Geographic. And all that yellow bordered magazine that you can get them, they weigh 1 million tons, but you can buy them, back issues at the antique stores. I mean, it's an American. I used to be a member of the National Geographic Society, just like George Bailey. Hey, dummy, I'm a member of the National Geographic Society. Don't you know where coconuts come from? It's America. Like apple pie and Chevrolet and baseball and hot dogs. National Geographic, it's part of our science culture in our country. How could we go against this? And it reminds me of a scene from Star Wars where, Luke is in the camo swinging through the vines like Tarzan with Yoda on his back like a backpack, and Yoda's going, "Through the Force, many things shall you learn. The future, you shall see the past. Friends long gone." He's teaching Luke about the Force, and Luke and him sit down, they take a break, and they're resting on a rock, and, Yoda's just doing the peaceful Yoda look out into space and all, and Luke has got this look on his question. It's like, he's about to ask where do babies come from or something. It's a difficult, uneasy question, and he goes, Master Yoda, Luke knew about the Sith, and he knew about the Jedi. He knew about the good side of the Force and the dark side, and he was wondering, and he asks him haltingly, Master Yoda, is the dark side stronger? Are they smarter, more powerful? Is National Geographic better than the Bible? Is basically the kind of question. And what does Yoda say? Oh, well, okay. Yoda says, no, quicker, hastier, more seductive, not stronger. No more questions while I answer now. Clear your mind of questions where it gets you these questions, So he tells him no. And that's what, of course, we want you to understand as well. But it doesn't look that good for us. I remember the story of Elijah and the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. Yeah, 400 of the prophets of Baal with the full backing of Queen Jezebel, who'd already executed people she didn't like anyway. And then there's one guy, Elijah. And several times in the chapters right around there, Elijah goes, I and I alone am left among the prophets of God. Only me, poor old me. I'm the only one left. And you know, sometimes we creationists feel that way. We know we're vastly outnumbered in the scientific community, even those of us with doctoral degrees. You know, we got Dr. Falling, and we got Dr. White, and we got Dr. Me, and you know, and then there's the other people who know a ton of stuff that are self-learned, which, you know, hey, I give full credit for that. The doctor only, I use it like Paul's Roman citizenship and his degree from Pharisee University, PU, you know, and he would use it. He would use it to open doors and get people's attention. He could speak all these different languages. He'd address the crowd in their language, and they went, wow, he learned our language. So I use it like Paul used his Roman citizenship too. Is it legal for you to beat a Roman citizen like this? What? Yeah, because the Roman guard knew he could get actually put in prison for doing that, and a Roman citizen was very, very important. So like being in Mensa. Good, okay. You remember the prophets of Baal got together, Elijah was there, and Elijah says, when all the people are there, he goes, how long will you halt between two opinions? If the Lord be God, then worship him. But if Baal be God, then worship him. And the Bible says the huge crowd of everyone in the congregation answered not a word. Most churches, most Christian schools, most Christian colleges and universities are silent on this evolution thing, answering not a word, not wanting to appear stupid in the eyes of man. Fear of man, fear of man. With a fear of who is the beginning of wisdom? The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Most people don't know there's another verse there in Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And we just learned knowledge is la ciencia from our Spanish-speaking friend back there. You know, in German, it's Wissenschaft. Wissenschaft just means knowledge craft. You know, so think, Christian people, old and young and everything in between. What are you going to do? There's the Bible with Genesis 1. There's National Geographic with all those fossils from China and the backing of every major institution of science in the planet, except for one little Elijah group holding up a Bible. And don't say anything or raise your hand like a good homeschooler, but pick in your brain right now, in your soul, in your heart. Because Elijah asked, how long will you halt between two opinions? You need to make it up in your mind now. You need to decide. Ask God to help you and give you the courage just to even say it inside. Just to even say it inside. I know Goliath looks pretty bad. But he went down pretty bad. In the old days, us old guys have a saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. No, you weren't supposed to repeat it, young people. The end of that little phrase was, the harder they fall. And Goliath sure did fall. And maybe this could too, but we have to decide. After I finish Bird of Paradise, bro Mike. Okay, troubles with Bird of Paradise, who is the Archaeopteryx that they found in 1999, in November of 1999. In March of 2000, just 4 months later, a new issue of National Geographic came out that had a letter to the editor from a scientist in China who had worked with the Archaeopteryx fossil and wrote this letter to the editor. Zhu Jing from the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology in the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing wrote this letter to National Geographic. And they just put in this little letters to the editor part in March of 2000. After observing a new feathered dromaeosaur specimen in a private collection and comparing it with the fossil known as Archaeoraptor, I have concluded that Archaeoraptor is a composite. What's that mean? It's a what? It's made up. It's a mix composed of two things. Uh-oh. The tail portions of the two fossils are identical. See, okay, when you get a fossil that is in slate or shale like that, and it's got like layers, a grain to it like a book or like wood, what they do is they see a bone sticking out, and then they'll take a chisel or something and they'll cut it, and boom, it folds open like a book. And on one side, you got the left image, and the other side, you have a mirror image of that fossil. Well, Zhu Jing found a farmer who had sold the fossil to the Americans, and he found the other half of the fossil, and it didn't look like this. It didn't look like this. The tail portions of the two fossils are identical, but other elements of the new specimen are very different from Archaeopteryx, in fact, more closely resembling Cinorhynchosaurus. Though I do not want to believe it, Archaeopteryx appears to be composed of a dromaeosaur tail and a bird body. It really was half dinosaur and half bird. Someone broke the tail off a dinosaur fossil and glued it to a bird fossil that was extinct and claimed it was a dino bird. And it fooled the world's greatest evolution experts. These guys are smart. They study fossils their whole life. How could they be fooled by something so stupid like that? Because they wanted it to be true. Adam and Eve wanted it to be true. Ye shall be as gods. You know, if God's not real and we evolved from worms and from monkeys, then we made ourselves. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. The Bible says, right point blank, we didn't make us. But if you believe in evolution, and it's that whole thing that we heard from Brother Dean and from Brother Steve last night, we want to believe we made ourselves. We're gods. We're gods. We're gods. But the authority of the Bible, as David said last night, is actually true, verifiable, and confirmable, unlike these urban myths and theories and hypotheses that are educated but still guesses. Notice the little note that National Geographic put in italics. Zhu Jing is one of the scientists who originally examined the Archaeopteryx. As we go to press, researchers in the U.S. report that CT scans of the fossil seem to confirm the observations cited in his letter. Results of the society-funded examination, where the National Geographic Society is going to pay for some scientists to confirm the CT scans of examination of Archaeopteryx and details of the new techniques that revealed anomalies in the fossil's reconstruction will be published as soon as the studies are completed. So we're going to get to the bottom of this. Yeah, we're honest. We're going to get to the bottom. It wasn't until almost a year, October 2000, that National Geographic, they hired an investigative reporter independently to look into the whole thing, and, well, no one noticed the Elmer's glue leaking out. No one noticed the Elmer's glue leaking out. So this guy then, this whole thing happened. Don't forget, the first chart was July 1998. In November of 99, they found the Archaeopteryx. In March, a Chinese scientist, very famous evolutionist in China, said, I think it's a fake. He said composite, but National Geographic begged him to change the wording from fake to composite. That was their idea. It sounded a little easier. And then they hired this reporter to get to the bottom of the whole story. So, meanwhile, in January, before they even started this, USA Today said, the missing link dinosaur bird featured in National Geographic magazine in November is a fake. Dinosaur bird link smashed in fossil flap. Archaeopteryx is actually two animals pieced together. National Geographic finds itself at the center of a scientific what? Embarrassment. Oh, the devil always overplays his hand. That's his main problem. He's so angry and so eager, he loses it and doesn't think before he speaks sometimes and overplays his hand. I think he did that with Jesus in the wilderness, but he wasn't going to trick Jesus anyway. So here's the issue. In the back In the back on page 128, in October of 2000, they give us the results of what this guy found out when he investigated in their retraction. Look what he says. Using what I have seen, heard, and read, I've assembled a brief history of Archaeopteryx. It's a tale of misguided secrecy and misplaced confidence, of rampant egos clashing and self-aggrandizement, wishful thinking, naive assumptions, human error, stubbornness, manipulation, backbiting, lying, and corruption. It sounds like a list of sins in Corinthians or Colossians or something, doesn't it? And most of all, abysmal communication. It's a story in which none of the characters looks good. Oh my, you've blown it all sky high. And this is Philip Curie here, one of the guys interested in this. The scans revealed that the tail, this is all from that retraction letter at the very back of National Geographic in October 2000. The scans revealed the tail had no natural connection to the body, just Elmer's glue. And he explained this to Stephen and Sylvia Tsirkus.
Pythagorean theorem, that's a good one.
I'm a good one, what?
Complex Brady stuff. I figure if I say smart-sounding things, people will think I know more than they do and will assume I'm right about everything.
Oh, so reality doesn't matter?
Nope, only perception matters.
Well, what about when you're proved to be disastrously wrong?
Perceived smart people are never wrong, just innocent victims of circumstance.
One newspaper told a little more of the story. This is from USA Today, February of 2000, the missing link that wasn't. Scientists in China have told USA Today that they've discovered yet another fake tale. Appears to have fooled another group of scientists as well as the editors of the British journal Nature, the oldest and most prestigious evolutionary science journal in the world. Stores Olson, curator of birds at Smithsonian's Institution National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., turned the spotlight on the whole mess. Those involved with the scientific gaffe agree. Olson tried to warn officials at National Geographic in a letter sent November 1st that the organization was headed for embarrassment if it endorsed the fossil in November of 1999. Okay, now, Dr. Olson warned National Geographic, look, let us see the fossil first before you publish this article in your November issue, because we're the Smithsonian. And National Geographic said, we're going to publish it because in our judgment, the fossil's great, and we're National Geographic. Burn. So the Smithsonian and Olson were already pretty mad. And when this all went down, they pounced on the other evolutionists and went, they came after him big time. He turned the spotlight. This is Stores Olson. He looks pretty mad right there. I'm sorry, Mike. There he is in front of a bird he killed and stuffed. Probably not in anger. But it says, curator of birds at the Smithsonian and a leading opponent of the theory came down hard on Archaeopteryx. He is an evolutionist. He's not an opponent of evolution. He's not even an opponent that birds evolved. There is a little group of evolutionists that believe birds did evolve from reptiles, but just not dinosaur reptiles, some other kind of reptile. So they fight about that. And this was another reason why Olson didn't like what National Geographic was doing. He didn't buy the dino bird theory. He bought the lizard bird theory, and so they were fighting about that. Now, this is Alan Fiducia, the chair of biology at North Carolina Chapel Hill. How many have heard of UNC Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina? Yeah. Basketball and all that. But look at what Dr. Fiducia says in an article in New Scientist magazine. Birds do it. Did dinosaurs? The theropod, oh, what's a theropod? A two-legged dinosaur. The theropod origin of birds, in my opinion, the head of biology at UNC Chapel Hill, in my opinion, will be the greatest embarrassment of paleontology of the 20th century. We're going to regret anybody ever said this dino bird thing. It's some lizard bird is what he's saying. We're going to regret it. A new study challenges the theory that birds evolved from dinosaurs. Even in 1997, look what it says. The embryonic thumb that dinosaurs had, it's almost impossible for the species to be closely related. And Dr. Fiducia said in Homologies of the Avian Hand, or the embryo development of birds versus dinosaurs, the new research shows, this is 1997, in Science magazine, another premier journal of evolutionary scientists, it says, the new research shows that birds lack the embryonic thumb that dinosaurs had, suggesting it is almost impossible for the species to be closely related. Again, fighting the dino bird theory, he believes in the lizard bird theory instead. Now, birds are very, very different from any other living thing in the way that they breathe. You inhale, your lungs fill up, and it's a dead end, and it comes back out again. But birds have a flow-through system in their lungs. The air goes in the lung, the oxygen gets absorbed, and it goes out the back door of the lung and is collected in these air sacs, and then it goes back through the lung again on its way out the bird's nostrils. You get more oxygen out of it this way, and if you're flapping really hard in the air, this is good to get more of the oxygen out of the air you're breathing. Now, bats can fly too, and they have lungs that breathe in and out like you and I with the bellows system instead of the flow-through system. But birds are extremely different. Birds and dinosaurs have a mismatch of fingers. Dinosaurs retain digits 1, 2, and 3, and birds have digits 2, 3, and 4 from their embryo development. Thus, the wrist bones, or the semilunate carpals, are of different origins in the two groups, and thereby grossly degrading the possibility of a dinosaurian origin of birds, 1998. Now, you can come on, walk on up with Albert or whatever, because I'm just going to point this out. According to evolution, the feathers of the birds came from the what of dinosaurs? Scales. Scales are just a flap of dried up folded skin. That's all scales are. Feathers, as you're about to find out, are way eons different from that.
Alex is our Eurasian Eagle Owl, and this is the largest species of owl in the world. These are amazing creatures. God thought of everything when he made them. They have these little ear tufts right there. They have nothing to do with hearing. They're more of a mood indicator, like a horse or a dog. Where he puts those ear tufts, you can tell what mood he's in. When you get to his eyes, you'll see his eyes. They're huge. They have massive eyes, gives them amazing vision. Their vision is so good they could see the text on a newspaper from across a football field. And they have amazing low-light vision. If your eyes were the same size as theirs compared to your head, your eyes would be the size of grapefruits. Can you imagine having an eye that big? That would be crazy. And their feathers. This is one of my favorite things about owls. They have a special fringe on the leading edge of their primary feathers, and when they flap, it breaks up the air turbulence and gives them silent flight. When this guy gets going, when he flaps a few times, you can hear it. Once he actually starts going, it is silent. He will fly over your head in the aviary, and you can't hear it. It's incredible. This is a big bird. Would anybody like to try to guess how much he weighs? 10, 20 pounds? 40 pounds, 32, 50, 25, 8. Alex weighs just over 5 pounds. I would say my average guess on this is 20, 25 pounds is probably what most people think. But God designed these birds for flight. They have hollow bones that have struts in them, and it makes their bones super lightweight and really strong. Their feathers are like foam-filled tubes. They're really lightweight and really strong. Joel, would you mind passing out some feathers? I got some feathers from some of our macaws that Joel's going to pass around. You guys can look at them. There's some primary feathers, wing feathers, and some tail feathers.
You mentioned that those aren't ears, those are feathers. And
yeah.
You mentioned primary feathers and tail. Could you give us a list? I mean, because obviously, these are just scales, and every scale looks the same. So, I mean, the feathers should all be the same too, just that.
Exactly. So feathers are very, very different than a scale. A scale is a fold in the skin, like you can see up there. When you get these feathers, look closely at them. They consist of the rachis, the shaft in the middle, and then on each side there's a vein. Each one of those veins has about 400 barbs, which are the tiny little things that come off. Each one of those tiny little hair-like structures that come off of that has about 800 barbules. that stick off of that. So they branch this way, and then off of that, I don't have a picture with me, but they branch off again. And there's a built-in Velcro to those feathers. So if they get ruffled, if you want to look at it, you can kind of pull it apart. If you push it back together, it will zip back together. So when a bird gets ruffled, he can comb his feathers. And God's provided so many unique things to birds that allow them to keep their feathers in good shape. Birds have an oil gland on their back. It's like right here. Most species have it. It's called the irapidgeal gland. And that gland secretes oil. Most commonly, you'll see a duck doing it. They reach back on their back and they comb through their feathers. They get oil on their beak. They comb it through their feathers. It'll zip them back together if they're messed up. And it waterproofs them. So that oil they comb through, if you drip water on this guy's back, it'll bead right off. It's incredible. Really, really amazing birds. They have 3 types of feathers. They have their contour feathers, they have downy feathers, and they have phyloplumes. So the contour feathers are the ones you see on the outside. All of these. Underneath, they have downy feathers, which keeps them really, really warm. This species of bird can live in negative 40-degree temperatures, and he's fine. I heard one keeper that lived up north. She said, there's only one time I've brought my bird inside. It was a Eurasian Eagle Owl, and it's because it was negative 35. And I brought him in because I was worried and I couldn't sleep. He was fine. God provided a way for these guys to live in super cold weather. They're amazing at what they do. When they get cold, they'll fluff up their feathers, and it'll trap that warm air in between their feathers and keep them nice and warm. When they get hot, they'll pull their feathers into their sides. It squeezes out all that air and keeps them cooler. So their wings. Alex only weighs about 5 pounds. He has about a 5-foot wingspan. A female of this species of owl can get twice this size. In birds of prey, the female is generally about 1/3 larger. This is not a particularly large male Eurasian eagle owl. Can you imagine a female that's twice this size with close to a 7-foot wingspan? That would be incredible. When we get down to their feet are insane. Anybody, do you think my grip strength or his grip strength is stronger? His? I'm offended. I was an acrobat, guys. You're right. His grip strength is 8 to 10 times the average human. 800 pounds per square inch. That makes these guys one of the strongest raptors in the world. You don't understand what 800 pounds per square inch feels like. When we were working with a great horned owl, which was smaller than this guy, and he was not nice. It had a broken wing. It was unreleasable, and we were training it. And my wife just got it on the glove, and it just laid down on her hand. This is a 3-layer glove, 3 cowhide layers. This is a very thick, it's an eagle gauntlet. Very thick, and it bruised her hand through the glove. They're extremely powerful. In the wild, they can take anything from a small rodent to a fox or a small deer. His wingspan? He has about a 5-foot wingspan. Will you show it to us one more time? Thank you, buddy. So back to feathers. They have the contour feathers on the outside. They have those downy feathers, which is kind of their next layer, and that keeps them really warm. And then the phyloplumes are crazy. So each one of their feathers, especially on their wings, they can move each individual feather side to side, up and down, and rotate. So we invented a plane, and we're like, oh man, we got this. We can create something that takes off in 2 miles and lands in 2 miles. These guys can fly 35 miles an hour, and you could fly just about 35 miles an hour and land on that tiny little post over there. They're extremely agile flyers. These guys can take out birds of prey. At nighttime, they will catch other birds of prey in mid-flight. They're amazing. We cannot engineer something anywhere near what this bird can do. It doesn't just happen. This bird is designed. God thought of everything
But aren't feathers just a modified flap of skin?
Just a modified flap of skin. So, going from a feather to a scale is impossible. That's a pretty simple structure. It's just a fold in the skin. A feather grows out of a follicle, like your hair. When they grow out and they kind of look like a porcupine quill. It's like a pin feather. And then they take the sheath off of that and they pull that sheath off of the feather and it opens up from inside of it. It's really fun to watch. This afternoon, if I can, I'm going to try to run home and grab some of my birds. One of them doesn't like to pull the outside of the feather off, and you'll see like a porcupine quill tail. It's pretty fun. But yeah, so they are super complex structures. When you look at a feather, if you look up close, the amount of complex structures are insane. They have little hooklets that are off those barbules that attach. That's what creates that Velcro-like grip. So you can comb them back together. Really cool. And then the phyloplumes are little hair-like structures in between the feathers. And they give, it's like a sensory thing so they can tell where their feathers are. Because they can move all those feathers. He has thousands of feathers. So those sensory feathers let him know where his feathers are while he's flying so he can adjust them and get them in the right place. Really cool. If you've ever plucked a chicken, they'll have little like hair-like things that you singe off. Those are phyloplumes. Is there anything else you want me to cover on that?
I was thinking of adding things, but I'm very impressed with the science depth of what you said. Dr. David Menton, a mentor of mine who works at the Creation Museum, has worked his whole life with electron microscopes and says one feather, you mentioned those little microscopic Velcro things that have little microscopic things that come off of each of those, one feather can have as many as 1 million microscopic structures in it that help it all hold together and do the smoothing thing that the bird's preening from their gland. It's just, the point I hope you see is a flap of skin. I mean, I'm sorry, but could even by mutations change into something with a root, with a follicle, with all those parts and all those different kinds, with all those different structures, all those different functions, in all those different kinds of birds. I'm sorry, it's not scientific, it's really dirt stupid that this could happen. And to imagine it could is a desperate, vain imagination. Vain imagination.
And I would have to agree. I work pretty exclusively with birds and reptiles. They are very dissimilar. Their function, a scale and a feather's function is dissimilar. Their development is dissimilar. Their mechanism of replacement is dissimilar. There is nothing, besides like the material they're made of, that they have in common. They molt. Parrots molt their feathers, and on top of that, they molt in matching pairs. So when a bird loses a feather on one side, they will lose the exact same feather on the other side. I have some matching pairs in the back if you guys want to look at them.
Yeah, but don't reptiles molt too?
Yeah, so reptiles shed their skin. And so a snake, most species of snake will shed their skin, and it comes off in one piece. So their whole skin, they'll crawl out of their skin. Most lizards will shed in pieces. Their skin will flake off. And when you look at a snake's skin, a shed, you can see where the scales fit into each little nook because they crawl out of it and it inverts their skin, which is really cool. They molt because they're growing. And so I think he put it, if you got a box, Amazon shipped you a box and you open up that box and inside that box is a bigger box. That's why snakes shed their skin. They outgrow it, that skin comes off in one piece. These guys molt their feathers, they drop them, and they drop them in a specific way. Because if they lost all the wing feathers on one side, it would make them uneven. So God thought of everything. He's like, hey, they need to be balanced. So we'll let them molt in matching pairs. If you look at his wings, they are absolutely symmetrical on each side. You can map out the feathers on one side, and you can see the exact mirror image on the other side. And when he loses one feather, within 2 days, you can generally find the other feather. We have 24 birds, I believe, and most of the time when you go into clean, if you actually look, you can find both of the feathers. And there's some in the back. I don't keep a lot of our feathers because we get a lot, but you can find them. That's incredible. That doesn't just happen. How many birds would die because they molted all their feathers on one side? If they molted like a snake molts or a lizard molts, they'd lose like half their feathers in one go. They don't do that. Feathers are incredibly intricately designed. And these birds, the lightweight. A feather does nothing if you don't have everything else to go with it. If you don't have those hollow bones in that lightweight bird, if this was a reptile, this would be a 30-pound animal. It's not. He's 5 pounds. That is incredible design. God thought of everything.
He's beautiful.
Yeah. How far can he turn his head? So owls, they have those big eyes. They're so big they're immobile in their sockets. So he can't look side to side like we can. So God thought of everything and gave him the ability to turn his head 270 degrees, 3/4 of a turn. If I hold him this way, he can look at you guys if he turns his head towards me. So we were working with injured birds of prey. And then when we were looking more into it, we decided to get an exotic species. These guys are from Europe, Asia, and Northern Africa. And he came from a breeder in New York. So he came from someone who breeds them for zoos, falconry, and educational programs.
You may have said, but how well can he hear?
His hearing's about 10 times more sensitive than ours. And if you can find the ears on your head, you can find them on his. And this species is more of a visual hunter, but they do have slightly offset ear holes. So if you guys close your eyes and I sneak over somewhere and I say something, you can tell where I am side to side. These guys can do it side to side. That offset ear hole helps them do it up and down too. So it helps them pinpoint where their prey is. Does anybody have any last questions? Great question. What makes their head be able to turn all the way around? So, if you are a mammal, whether you're a mouse, a human, or a giraffe, you have 7 cervical vertebrae, 7 neck bones. Birds have anywhere from 13 to 25. Eurasian eagle owls have 14. So he has twice as many neck bones, and that gives him that really cool robot ability to turn his head all the way around. You just can't see it very well because he has a lot of feathers. Is he nocturnal? So this species is considered crepuscular, so they prefer to hunt at dusk and dawn. They will hunt at night, and they will hunt during the day. Now, a lot of people are like, owls don't hunt during the day, but they will. They just prefer to hunt at night because that's when they have the advantage. Because they're not super fast. This species can fly 35 miles an hour. A lot of the hawks can fly super fast, and a peregrine falcon can stoop at 240 miles an hour. And when we go back in the gorge today, we might get to see some because we have some back there. Yeah, so he makes that when he's like communicating with you, he does make a classic like hoo hoo owl sound. It's really fun. He almost never does it when he is out of his aviary, but he does it just about every time I walk up to his aviary. He'll start hooing at you. And then he also makes little like screeches and stuff. If you annoy him, he'll make like really high pitched like meh. So I don't think this species migrates very much. They are super adaptable. It's one of the most widespread species of owl in the world. They can be found all over Europe, Asia, and Northern Africa. And they do really well in a lot of climate. They're very similar to the great horned owl, which you can find all over like Central and North America, from Canada all the way down. Someone had a question in the back. Yeah. His throat, so that's panting like a dog. So he does that when he gets hot or if he gets nervous. He'll pant. Who hunts him? These guys are apex predators. So they don't have any natural predators. One of their leading causes of death is humans. So power lines, they'll get tangled up in power lines, and then cars. People throw a banana peel, apple core out the window. It's not a big deal. It'll biodegrade in a few days. But that attracts rodents to the edge of the road. And then these guys will swoop down across the road to try to catch them, and they get hit by cars. So when you throw something out the window, it's like, But that attracts the stuff that this guy hunts and brings him close to the road. How often do they have babies? They'll breed once a year. Their babies take about 7 weeks to fledge before they have feathers, and then they'll stay with their parents for another 6 months while they're feeding. So they're learning how to hunt, and the parents will feed them if they fail to hunt. So they hang out with the parents for quite a while. How long are his legs? That's a great question. So owl's legs are incredibly powerful. They don't look very long, but if you pick his body up, he has very, very long legs. And he'll stretch them out. A lot of times when they are catching rabbits and stuff, they'll hit it so hard they can kill it on the spot. Little rodents won't even know what hit them because they hit it so hard. I've seen him hit stuff where he's just bam, and you're like, oh my goodness. That's incredible. It's pretty intense when you watch him hunt.
So when he loses his feathers, do they grow back?
They do grow back. So you'll hear people that trim feathers or they clip their birds. So a feather is like hair. When it's growing, it has blood that grows in it. And if you clip it then, you can kill a bird. They can bleed out through a single feather and die. Once the feather finalizes and gets grown all the way out, that blood supply gets cut off and drains out. So it's like a hair. If you cut it, it will not grow back until they molt. If you go in and you rip that feather out, it will grow back within 6 weeks. So if sometimes people will try to clip their birds and they'll trim too much of their wings off. So when you trim a bird, you only want to take off part of their primary feathers. If you get into their secondaries, if they jump off of something, they will just hit the ground. They just fall. So vets and stuff will go in and they'll pull out some of those trimmed feathers to get some to grow back in so that the bird won't hurt itself if it tries to fly. And it takes 6 weeks if you pull a feather out to come back in. How much do they eat a day? So he eats between 180 and 240 grams of meat a night, and he gets fed 6 days a week. I don't know if that answers your question, but he eats a rat that's that big every night. Any last questions before I pass it back over? How big are their eggs? They're a little bigger than a chicken egg. They're the size of a goose egg, so they're that big. And they grow very, very quickly.
The whole idea with that being a missing link was proved wrong, but I never told you what was wrong with this chart from National Geographic. And I read through it really fast, but they tell you what's wrong with that chart. This is the little thing on the right, and if we zoom in on this part here, this family tree at the left is not a chronological progression. What's that mean? They're not in order. They're not in order. It looks like a nice smooth chain from fuzzy-plucked chicken lizard to a crow, but they're not in the right order. Why did they say that? Because by their own radiometric dating methods, these things are not in the right order. They put them in that order because it looks better for the story of evolution, and they admit it right here. Take a look at the chart. I mean, it looks really nice, but let's look at how old. 120 million years ago, 90 million years ago. So far, they're getting younger and younger as they get closer to the future and future. 80 million, the Unenlagia. But now look what happens. This one is really in the wrong order, and he's just as old as the fuzzy-plucked chicken lizard, and so is this one. These three all are brothers. They lived at the same time. They're not related at all, really. And this one, the Archaeopteryx, is the oldest one on the list. Why'd they put it up at the young end? Because it looks the most like a bird. It looks the most like a bird, and it could fly. And the Eolulivus is, because it has the Aula bone, 115 million. They put these only in the order that made the story look good. And where did I get these dates? The dates were in the article. The dates were in the article. I mean, Owen and his little brother, Knox, or Micah, is that right? Micah and your little brother Levi. You could have looked in the National Geographic. You don't have to be a scientist like me. You could have read it yourself, and you could have seen this. If you read the whole article, read the fine print. I got this from the same article. Look, in that article it says here about Archaeopteryx and Proto-Archaeopteryx. The earliest known bird, 150 million year old Archaeopteryx, but then down here they say the 120 million year old Proto-Archaeopteryx. And they admit that it comes 30 million years later. How can it be the granddaddy? This is like saying you're older than your grandparents. Your grandparents are younger than you, but how do they excuse this? Well, this may be how Archaeopteryx' real ancestors did look, so we put it that way. This is that illegit thing. This is that self-contradictory thing. And Dwayne T. Gish said, it's unbelievable what unbelievers have to believe to be unbelievers. What you have to go through mental gymnastics and backflips and all this counter stuff to try to make yourself believe. I do believe in spooks. I do believe in evolution. I do. You gotta just try so hard. It's hard to have faith in this stuff when the facts and the science and the logic go against it. Take a look at this. Proto-Archaeopteryx and Archaeopteryx. The one in front actually in their own dating method, which I don't believe works, but they do, so it's their problem. It should be 30 million years before, but they put it in front anyway. And there's that quote, yeah, we don't have agendas, we give you unbiased facts. I just have a problem with that too. I'm sorry. Hath God said, the devil said, oh, throw yourself off the temple, the angels won't let you. Oh, change the stones into bread. Oh, I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world. At least he wasn't lying about that, but it was still a trick to Jesus. This cross thing you're about to do? I own all these people. They were given to me. I own their blood. Like the white witch in Chronicles of Narnia, Jadis. She owned a traitor there, Aslan. And Satan's telling Jesus, I think, I'll give them to you. You won't have to do the cross thing. I'll give them back. And you can have them. And let them just be redeemed. I'll take my claim off of them. Just worship me. That's all the payment I want. That's all. The tricks of the devil. What ended up, this is the thing that burns me now. After all of this, finding out that they fake stuff and they believe it, they rearrange things to make it look good. Now what, after National Geographic, what showed up in the school textbooks? This is Inquiry into Life by Sylvia Mader, the 11th edition. I'm teaching out of the 14th edition now. I've taught out of the 7th edition. It's a secular college level biology textbook. Well, look at what's in the book. There it is. There's the Sinosauropteryx, the fuzzy-plucked chicken lizard, the Velociraptor, Archaeopteryx, and modern birds. They picked a blue jay. And the only problem is the dates aren't in that book. Like National Geographic at least admitted it. The dates aren't in there. Look what it says. The evolution of birds. The traits we think of as characteristic of modern birds have evolved in stages over many millions of years. But they don't have, now the lie is a lie because they're not even admitting that they put them in the wrong order. And maybe Sylvia Mader and her book don't even know. Maybe they didn't read the whole article in National Geographic, or maybe they did and they're liars. But whatever happened, the devil managed to get this in a textbook with no challenge, no admission that the chart is a fake. Those bird fossils really existed. Some of them didn't have feathers and some of them did. Some of them were birds and some of them weren't, but there weren't any dino birds. God in the beginning made people He made 2 people and he made monkeys. He never made any monkey people, okay? There weren't any missing like this suggests there were. Stephen Jay Gould, one of the most famous atheists and evolutionists from the 20th century, said this in Natural History magazine in an article he entitled Abscheulich, which means atrocious in German. Look what he said in 2000. Once ensconced in the textbooks, misinformation becomes cocooned and effectively permanent because textbooks copy from what? That chart got in a bunch of textbooks I saw after this stuff came out in National Geographic, and it's there forever now because they copy from old textbooks and they keep the things they like. There's Dr. Fiducia again. Archaeopteryx, early bird catches a can of worms, and he said this: paleontologists have tried to turn Archaeopteryx into an earthbound feathered dinosaur, but it's not. It's a bird, a perching bird, and no amount of paleobabble is going to change that. If I was an evolutionist, I'd be really sweating in my boots. I'd be wetting my pants, overflowing my depends. I would. National Geographic still didn't stop this. Look what happened in 2003, and then I'm about to close up, but it's ridiculous. They were embarrassed. The Smithsonian said, you're going to be embarrassed. Fiducia says, you should be embarrassed. We believe evolution, but not that dinosaurs gave rise to the birds. Some other reptile in our evolution story did it. But this fossil was found of a velociraptor and a Sauropodian dinosaur, both killed when a wet sand dune fell on them and buried them in the middle of a fight. And this is the fossil they found, locked in deadly combat. The Sauropodian dinosaur actually has the velociraptor's front arm in his teeth, and the velociraptor has his killing claw behind the neck shield on the Sauropodian. But there's the 2 fossils. But look at how they drew them in National Geographic when they did the artist's conception. Look at the picture up atop above the fossil. The velociraptor's entire body is not covered with scales, but feathers. There wasn't a single feather found on that velociraptor, but his entire body is covered in feathers, just like the owl's feathers. And they drew it this way anyway. This wasn't fact. This wasn't evidence. This wasn't an observation. This isn't the scientific method. This is pretend. This is radical, fanatical faith. It's not science. It's not the scientific method. Science should be based on observations and evidence and measurements, not on you changing the evidence and then showing it to people with your make-believe lie on it. You know, I'm not calling these people liars. I'm saying they want it to be so true, so bad, they just can't stop themselves. Don't put your faith in that kind of thing. Don't put your faith in that kind of radical, cult-like, fanatical religious belief. It's not science. It's not even a respectable religion. It's an urban myth that needs lies. You know, evolution is the only scientific theory that needs laws to protect it. We don't need that for other scientific theories. There are laws against contradicting evolution in the schools. There are laws that say a teacher has to ask permission to teach creation. They don't have to ask permission to teach evolution in the school. As a matter of fact, if the principal says you can't teach evolution, the school system can be sued. And if the principal says you can't teach creation in your class, and I've taught in the public schools more than I've taught in Christian schools, well, almost equal now. I got away with teaching creation in the public schools because I got permission. And I taught both models so the students could compare. Oh, the devil doesn't like to have his lame-o theory compared to evidence that makes a lot of sense and logic, that there's got to be a creator. And a world full of shrill voices and agendas. We at National Geographic are committed to an unbiased presentation of the facts. No, they're not. Yeah, I'm calling them liars, but you got to call it sometime. Sometime. Jesus called Satan a liar and the father of it, and he's been a liar from the beginning, and I'm calling these guys liars. They know better. They should know better. They're my colleagues in science. They're teaching. They're teachers. They're spreading their they're educating the public in their museums and their magazines and their journals and their reports and their research, and they're telling people that's stuff that's not true, stuff they know is not true. That fossil didn't have a single feather on it, but they drew it that way anyway. Why would a smart person believe such a dumb thing or believe that it justifies fabricating the evidence? It's because they want it to be true so bad. In many audiences, people will say to me, okay, Dr. Jackson, in the talk you just gave, whatever the talk was, you just proved that there's a God and evolution's not true. So why do so many people believe in evolution, and why are there so many atheists who don't believe in God? And I'll say, you really want to know the real reason? Yeah. It's because I believe it's an evil spell come up out of hell. It's like in Lord of the Rings when that big black cloud came up out of Mordor and made it dark on Middle-earth the whole time during that war. I think it's a war, and it is an evil spell from Satan, who is the father of lies and extremely good at it, at tricking people. And sometimes the smarter you are here, the dumber you are here, and way dumber you are here. The ancient Hebrews prayed with their hands uplifted. I would that all men lift up holy hands to heaven, said Paul. And that's not happening with my colleagues in science. Instead of putting holy hands above their head, they put their head above everything else. And there are many Christians who feel like, well, evolution was just God's way. It's how he did it. God did it that way. Well, then you must tear out the first 12 chapters of your Bible and throw them in the trash if evolution's true and the earth is 4.6 billion years old, because the genealogies add up to 4004 BC. You could take a little while. You'll have troubles finding Isaac's lifespan, but the others are easy. Isaac's comes a couple chapters later after you first think you should hear it, and you can add it up yourself. And all the Muslims and the Jews and the Christians all agree Abraham was born in the year 2056 BC. And you can calculate backwards everybody else's age all the way back to Adam, 4004 BC, 1,948 years before Abraham was born. No way, that's such a bad call. He did that on purpose, that's no accident. You're not even close, too long. I didn't know your husband was into sports. He's not. When creationists watch National Geographic TV specials. And there's that, they just drew it, all the drawings of dinosaurs with feathers all over them. The prevailing theory that birds descended from theropods is paleontological wish fulfillment based on what kind of science? Sloppy science. I hope your faith has grown against their faith. Look, their rock is not our rock. Their wine is as the poison of asps. Mean snakes. Not nice ones like your hog-nosed snake.